Hi everyone, how are you all? Thank you so much for joining me today in what is the first of our Summerton sipping sessions. First of many, but we'll come back to them later. This is my attempt to bring a new tasting format, because many of you know how difficult it's been to do our virtual festivals, but I still want to bring everyone together and share great whiskey and get talking to great brands. So this is our new format of doing that, and thank you so much for joining us and being part of this. We have 3 fantastic brands coming to the screen this evening, all sharing their love, their knowledge, their passion for what they do. But most importantly, as you've all got the packs here, 2 drams each, so we get to enjoy what they're creating as well. We'll be starting off with the East London Liquor Co., which will be starting in about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Then roughly 7:30, we will be with the Oxford Artisan Distillery, and then at about 9:10, Stauning. These are give or take 5 minutes. Anyone who remembers the virtual festival knows that I am not awesome at stopping talking or stopping the conversation, but I'm going to do my best. And then we'll be finished a little bit before 10. Most importantly, between each brand, we will have a 3-minute break, so you can head to the loo, grab some water, replace, clean out your glasses, and get ready for the next brand. It also allows the conversations in the chat function to carry on for a little bit longer after we've stopped talking, because as well as having someone on screen from each brand, we also have someone from the distillery. Pretty important people at the distillery we've got in each person on the chat, so we can carry on answering questions, because it's important for me that we answer as many of your questions as possible, and we might not be able to do it all on screen, so we've got 2 people, one on screen with us, one in the chat. So please bring your questions, ask away. Glassware is something that comes up quite a lot in these sessions. We can go all it's great if you've got a Summerton glass, tasting glass. There are other tasting glasses, Glencairns around, but if you don't have one, don't worry, a tumbler works just as well. This is what my dad drinks out of, and it's plastic. It works for him. If you don't have that, a wine glass works as well. They all have a slightly different impact in how you nose and experience a whiskey, but don't worry if you don't have the same thing as me at that point in time. One thing I will say is, don't forget to drink water. Do drink some water today. It's quite important. We've got a fair few drams to try, and you don't need to drink the whole lot today. I actually quite like in these tasting events to drink half and then come back later and try them again, see if I get a different experience. Particularly you're having 6 in a row, what happens if you split them out or do them in different orders? So you don't need to drink them all. You can also try a little drop of water in there as well. That changes the experience. So that's something that can be done too, and you just do it as you feel fit, as works best for you. You'll see there is a chat function. I know a lot of you are in there already and have logged in. It's to log into Google. The key reason why is just so we can moderate it if needs be. It's not about trying to calm down the conversations amongst us. People who were at our Glasgow virtual tasting or distillery tour chat we did a while ago, remember that strangers turned up and tried to ruin it for us. So we've had to do a little bit. That's why we have the login function, just so that we can keep the conversations amongst ourselves, and it's a safe space for us. And on that, I think we should get the evening started. First of all, I'm going to ask you in the chat, have you eaten your snack already? Because I know I have. How about you? Have you eaten it yet? And whilst you're answering that in the chat, let's bring on our 2 guest hosts and introduce who's going to be chatting with us all evening and sharing their knowledge. So can Fee and Ed come on screen, please? Hi, Fee.
Hello.
I'm just going to very brief introduction to yourselves, and then please carry on. But we'll start with Fee, who I was trying to figure out today. I think you're our third longest serving member now.
Thank you so much for not calling me your oldest serving member.
Oh no, that's Toby, who may be here in the background. We were working this out, and Vin. So Toby from Whiskey Shared, I think, is the oldest. Is the longest serving. Let's do it that way.
Longest.
Yeah. And then it's between you and Vin. I think at the next ones, it gets a little bit difficult to remember when everyone started, but the first few I do remember because we only had a few members in those days. But anyway, Fee is
shared honor with him.
Yeah, Fee has been with us on the Summerton journey for a very long time and supported us. But Fee also does a lot of work within the alcohol industry herself and presents some radio shows, particularly on cocktails is my favourite part. But please tell us a little bit about what you do, Fee, and what's your favourite whiskey at the moment?
I think it depends what's in my glass and what my mood is. I always have a bottle of Big Pete under the table. Just if you just want an easy quaffer, if you're feeling sore and you need that bit of comfort, just something with a big oomph of peat just keeps you going. And obviously anything Ed is selling.
Yeah, good answer.
And
but
tell us a little bit about your radio shows.
Yeah, the Cocktail Hour has just celebrated 300 shows with its current producer, had about 200 with the one before that. It's on over 30 stations and also Mixcloud, so works as a podcast as well, where basically I get to drink responsibly and tell everyone what I'm drinking, where to go, what club to join, Summerton incidentally, and really just celebrate the fact that whiskey, cocktails, gin, rum, cognac, they've all got a great history and the people behind them, because it's not just what's in the glass, it's what's behind the glass. And my glass, incidentally, is a perfect measure. I've got 12 lined up in front of me so that I can add water. Always use Larkfire water because then you get the purity. So when I go to festivals, I've got the continuity there as well. Something else I do, you might notice a few bottles behind me. I do the tasting notes for Swelder Spirits, and if anyone wants to know more about them, they're fantastic. We're talking whiskey, rum, cognac, other things coming up. They're available on Top Whiskies.
They are
awesome. So Ed, Fee is someone I do love bumping into at an event, at a festival, and a whiskey show, because despite all of the whiskey that turns up with the brands, and we have enough, Fee will always have at least another thing hidden away for herself to enjoy. You've got to try this. You're thinking, like, I don't know how I fit more whiskey in, but Fee always does. So
well, you've got to share it. I always have 4 hip flasks at any festival, so if you see me there, just give me a shout and happy to share.
Yeah,
including Summerton bottles, actually.
Perfect. And then Ed is Ed's a friend of mine from the whiskey world as well, and someone who I do enjoy going to an event to. But we got to know each other when Summerton was early, and Ed was behind Top Whiskies, the Instagram channel, which was the biggest, I think, English whiskey focused Instagram channel. You had the second biggest or the biggest YouTube channel in England as well. But now Ed's moved into, has taken that next step further into our whiskey world and has a shop called Top Whiskies that has many an independent bottler and in there. And I'm looking forward to going to a whiskey show with you next month.
Absolutely. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be. But tell us a little bit about Top Whiskies.
Yeah, so Top Whiskey started as a passion project, as I think kind of many of us fall into the whiskey world just because we love it. We love the people. We love exploring. Started very much as a social media hobby. And as the social media account grew, I kind of really discovered the world of independent bottlers like Swelder Spirits that Fee mentioned. I love independent bottlers because I think you get a real artisan quality product, but you also get to meet really passionate founders behind those brands, and you get to meet the people that make these whiskies, much like we're about to do this evening. So I started topwhiskies.com in its current form as a shop to specialize and celebrate independent bottlers. So you'll find lots of indie brands, single casks, lots of unique expressions, perhaps steering a little bit towards single malts at the moment. So this evening's focus on rye is going to be, as per the title, a real exploration. I'm really looking forward to seeing a slightly different angle on the world of whiskey.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. So now you know who we're going to be talking with all evening. Thank you everyone for joining. It's been great. And I'm enjoying reading the hellos and seeing everyone joining in. Sorry, I haven't picked them all out, but I am reading them all if I can. But now let's get ourselves started and get the intro rolling for our first brand, please. Hi, we're back, and hopefully we will now have Sam from the East London Liquor Co joining us.
Hello, how's it going?
Very, very well. Thank you for joining us. That, in case no one realised, was the distillery. We got to see it at work, where Sam is head of whiskey. But please introduce yourself, the brand, and tell us, what we'll be tasting tonight.
Yeah, I don't know who filmed that video. I think Isabel must have sneakily did that video, covertly done it around the distillery without any of us knowing, but it's nice. It's good. Yeah, I'm Sam Garbutt. I'm the head of whiskey at East London Liquor. We've been going as a brand for about 9 years, going 10 years, making whiskey for 8 of them. Yeah, we produce single malt, rye, different other blends of different things, gin, vodka. We've done some brandies. We've done kind of, anything that can be distilled, we'll give it a go in distilling it and sticking it into barrels and aging it, basically. And try and make things that are a little bit different and things that we really want to drink ourselves. And try to kind of stick to the rules a bit, but kind of also kind of bend them in our own ways to create some interesting things and try and make good tasting liquid. What's your favorite whiskey at the moment? Not from... Look, we'll save you that part of it. It's a non-East London whiskey. What's your favourite at the moment? So actually, I kind of went off lots of peated stuff for a while, but I was back onto drinking the first load of the Kilkerran 8 last night, and it's so good. I kind of forget how good it is every time I go back to it. It's amazing. Yeah, that's a very good call. So we know that you know your whiskey. That's a good place to start as the head of whiskey. And Fee and Ed, have you tried previously some East London Liquor Co whiskey?
I've had their gin, and I keep seeing them in Borough Market. Mm-hmm. There's a stand. Great. I don't know if it's actually yours, but they sell a lot of your product.
It is. We have our own little shop down there. that does some of our stuff and a bit of other stuff. But I think we're kind of managed. We had lots and lots of other whiskey there. And we're trying to kind of narrow it down to being a bit more just us now. We were selling too much of other people's stuff.
But if it gets people in the door.
It does, yeah. And it's nice to have it. It's good to have a few things that I guess, yeah, we as a company all kind of like. So like you pick a few brands or pick a few drams that you like and have them in the shop. It's quite nice.
And Ed, yourself?
I too have had the pleasure.
Right.
So I first came across East London at one of the whiskey shows. This is probably going back certainly pre-pandemic, so perhaps 4 or 5 years. But I discovered you at your festival stand. Really enjoyed tasting my way through the lineup, and in the years since, I've enjoyed keeping an eye on you and tasting some of the releases that have come out. And I'm really excited to dive back into them this evening.
Excellent. Yeah, great. Ooh.
Awesome. I was lucky enough to try you at the Croydon Whisky Festival. I know we've got the organizer in here, Richard.
Oh, nice.
I think you had the Madeira cask on the stand, and that was lovely. That was really nice. But we're here to talk about rye.
We are.
How we always hear about rye being a slightly more difficult grain to make whiskey out of. What's the process you go through, and how what are the difficult parts of it?
So I think it's difficult, but in some other ways, it's kind of more rewarding than working with barley. It's kind of if you're not kind of bashing a ton of enzymes and stuff into it to just make it do itself, and you manage to get all that conversion through your own process, it's a lot more rewarding. There's a few more steps to all of it, which is interesting. So it's quite nice to work like that. So our normal process for most of the rye we've done is 55% malted rye, 45% malted barley, usually Maris Otter as the barley variety. So we tend to use that most of the time. We've gone up to, I think 66% rye was the highest we went, that was able to louter in our mash tun, and it was very, very slow. But I think even that point, kind of the flavor profile coming through in the spirit was maybe a bit too dry. So we brought it back down to 55, and we're like, that's a nice happy medium between flavor, kind of ease of mashing in a normal day. And then usually we use about kind of between 5 and 10% oat husk just in the mash as well, because that stops us having to use any other kind of glucanase enzyme to thin the mash. So it's almost a bit like if you're adding kind of gravel to soil to help it drain a bit better. It's almost the same kind of process as that. So it has no flavor profile or no fermentable extract on it. It's just like gravel in there, basically.
That's really interesting. And I think we should maybe pour the first dram as we talk about it.
I've already done it.
Even better.
I already did, yes.
So we said the first dram is going to be the 2021 East London blend. And Sam, can you just tell us what's gone into this blend?
So yes, this is quite confusing, I guess, in some ways. I was having to actually re-go over all of my details of it today from all of my notebooks and stuff. So is anyone else familiar with Sonoma County, which is an American distillery in California? We've worked with them lots over the years, and the idea was to kind of create a co-blend, like an intercontinental blend of different things together. So kind of effectively, it's 71% Sonoma County bourbon, or two different bourbons actually blended together. You have to stay with me on this. So a high rye bourbon, so 51% corn in both of them, and then one of them has a high rye content, the other one has a high wheat content. So the two of those bourbons, and then 29% of it is our London rye, which is our normal London rye from our kind of normal releases, but it's from only French oak casks for that. So it kind of effectively has 6 different types of grain in it. It has rye and Maris Otter from Norfolk, and then it has corn, wheat, rye, and barley from California.
That's pretty cool.
That is a mixture.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. So you kind of get a bit of like it's a lot altogether, but you can kind of quite nicely pick out a few different notes from it if you concentrate quite hard. You can see notes of kind of bourbons, you can see notes of American ryes in there, and then you can still get a bit of kind of a lot kind of sweeter, kind of greener rye from ours.
What are the crowd getting? How are you? What are you getting on the nose? And Fee, what are you getting?
I'm having a Reuben sandwich. You've got the rye bread, you've got the pastrami, some pickles there, a little bit of mustard. I'm feeling very hungry.
I
I love
Oh,
that.
and Danish
love
ginger
that.
biscuits.
Yeah, if we ever need to do notes for the club, Fee is where I'm going for them.
Thank you.
She had a difficult way who we're talking to. You are fantastic. Everyone, Fee is fantastic at notes. So that's one of the things to pick up from the radio show and just in general within the club. Oh,
I think it's
lovely.
very visual. You get loads of memories coming in. And it's wonderful. The reason I've got 2 glasses, incidentally, in case anyone wondered, I'm not being strange. It just means I can add water as I go along instead of drinking it, nosing it, drinking it, and then starting again. So immediately you can compare with and without water.
Oh, that's a really
And
good
drink
idea.
lots of glasses.
It's a really clever approach, actually. Yeah, because I've always said that you can unpick more flavour when you have a couple of drams to compare and contrast. But what you're doing there is keeping the dram consistent at 2 different strengths, so you can then see how different notes come out of the same whiskey. That's a very clever approach. You should consider writing tasting notes professionally for independent bottlers with that kind of technique.
I think that's such a great idea, and you should actually sell them.
Go team.
It's quite nice seeing what's coming in from the audience as well. Gary says it's confused because there's loads going on. You've got green olives from Mark, and I agree with you, Che. It's a little bit sweeter than I was expecting from rye. I on purpose haven't tried these before, and so this is my first taste. And it's very aromatic, as you're right.
And really when you add water, you're getting all the fruitiness. So you've got strawberry laces coming through. You've got a peppered steak as well. And it's much lighter than rye. You've got Jamaica ginger cake.
Yeah, and what Simon's getting the ginger as well, the biscotti, the fruitiness. I'm getting that fruitiness as well, Simon. Oh, that's almost don't want to stop smelling this. This is delicious. Oh, aniseed, yeah. So just so people know, I came into whiskey from bourbon. So if anyone's going to put some bourbon into any blend, they're always going to be a winner from me.
That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, it was quite hard to blend at first. Actually, we kept hitting a lot of dead ends when we had all of the samples and the different things on the table. It was quite a hard thing to get your head around because slight adjustments of each one brought out completely different things, or kind of ruined all of it, if that kind of makes any sense. It was really hard to balance it into something where you could kind of get a bit of everything, and it was still kind of, it wasn't an experiment, it was still palatable to drink, and it was nice, and it was kind of exciting. So yeah, we stumbled across the kind of the 2971, I think it is. With this,
is this a repeated collaboration? Is this something that's going to come again?
It's not in the pipeline too. We did one the year before, which was a lot heavier on the Sonoma side. And then I think we redid the project and improved it quite a bit with this one. But we haven't, it's not really been in talks to do it. But it's something that'd be quite exciting to do again. I think I'd kind of like to do other do more blends with other distilleries, kind of smaller style things. Even do a New World one, get Australian, American, Danish, German, and then English in there somehow. Try and do as many different countries as you can.
I like that.
There's a story of London's history and heritage to be made there. The idea of reaching out to different parts of the world, different bits of our history, different elements of trade and connections, and bringing them together back into London as a global hub to create something that is both simultaneously London and what you do, but equally the world and representing other places at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's great. I think people often kind of talk about, people are talking about terroir and whiskey all of the time now. And it's quite difficult when people ask us that question, because we're like, well, we don't have our own farm. We don't have fields that near us. We don't have the beautiful water source. We don't have any of that stuff. We're kind of just in the middle of this city, but you take the inspiration from everywhere else, I guess. So if that's a thing of all of the world coming around into London. You have to kind of use a bit of that and some smog.
There's an equal honesty about that approach too. If kind of part of the sense of place is the honesty of the place around you. I quite like the twist you're putting on that and saying we're not going to try and do something that's disingenuous and dishonest. We're going to recognize the strengths and limitations that we have and create something that is special in a different way.
Yeah, I think we wouldn't be interested in doing anything that kind of wasn't us or kind of a bit fake. It just doesn't, it doesn't really interest any of us. I think it would just feel a bit weird trying to pretend that we were farm to bottle or something. So yeah, we have to do what we do being in London.
And also you called yourself the East London, liquor company. I was intrigued by the word liquor, which is very American.
So you'd have to ask Alex on that, who is in the chat somewhere. He can tell you about that. It's his name. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah,
Right.
Alex, where did that come from? Should we quickly get Alex on screen to answer instead of on the chat? Let's get him. There we go. Hi, Alex.
How you doing, everyone?
So, just quickly, as I was saying, we have some very important people answering the chat for you as well. Alex is the founder. He's not on screen. He's there just to help us in the background. So please tell us about liquor.
Well, it felt more encompassing, and it gave me sort of thinking about the brand and the business long before we even got keys to the building, a bit more freedom and permission to be a bit more experimental with what we were thinking about doing and making. And I think that's, could it have been East London Spirits Company maybe, but liquor just felt a little bit more contemporary. And I guess, you're right, Fee, it is a bit more American, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking of giving us as much license and permission to get on with it. And yeah, Kerry, you're absolutely right. Proper East End word. Yeah. It is a proper East End word. And I guess it's that sort of contemporary take hopefully reflects itself in the liquid you're trying tonight, because it is, we're led by flavour. We're a new world whiskey producer, being led by what we think makes great juice, and that's super exciting.
Well, I'm very excited by your brandy as well.
Yeah, so we actually, that's that we need to find some time to get that in bottle.
We can all help.
Yeah, we will. But you started really well, because there's one person in our chat or in the tasting that is trying to find a way to love rye. He's a reviewer, and whenever we send a rye out, he's very kind and very gracious in how he says he doesn't like it, but he just doesn't like it. So today is his last chance. And Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey did say this is a good place to start for me. As a fan of bourbon, there you go. And not really of rye. No, let's not lie. It's not really of rye. You're not a fan at all. So to get Vin on the first one is pretty big. And I've got to say, I only know of a couple of blends that go internationally, and I really do. It's normally of single malt. This going across styles is something I really like, and I'm glad that you've come up with this idea.
Well, I think it's a good point. I think we would really like to do it again. I think it'd be a nice thing to do. And it's, having all of those, I guess you don't really get that very often. I never kind of really thought about it before, that no one else has really done it like that. But yeah, the mass of all the grains together is so interesting. And I think as well, the Sonoma bourbon, a portion of that rye is unmalted rye as well. So there is malted rye and unmalted rye in there too. So you've actually got a proportion of everything. So almost 7 different grains, I guess, in terms of different flavors.
It works. It works for me.
How did the Sonoma connection come around in the first place? The distilleries are approximately the same age. I think you started around the same time.
More or less. I think Sonoma are a little bit older, maybe by a year or two. Isn't that right?
I think a couple of years older. I was doing a tour of distilleries in the States before we opened East London, and was just kind of struck by what they were doing. Alembic pots, direct fired, grain in distilling, quite a different approach. And it was Adam and I, the founder, got chatting, And we actually helped them import their liquid into the UK for a few years. But we got talking about what might be a fun liquid experiment that kind of, challenged this idea. I mean, obviously in the last few years, blends have been getting a bit more good press, but I think the B word has had some less good connotations over the last few decades. So it's kind of lovely to challenge that notion and actually use the blend as an asset for liquid and a talking point, and something that is exciting and sort of forces people to think twice about what their preconceptions are about blends in general.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. I think where you're producing a product with honesty, using quality ingredients to create something that's almost more than the sum of its parts, I think there's a real skill in that, and it should be celebrated just as a single malt would be celebrated.
Yeah, I agree. And there's been a couple of calls for a Commonwealth blend. It's one way of looking at it. There's a few ways you can cut that on the blend and the international, but yeah, I really like that. I don't want to go on to the next one. I'm really enjoying this one. So people who remember me at Croydon, I had the same problem there. The first dram I drank I really liked and didn't really want to move on. When you find a favourite at the beginning, you're like, well, why do I need the rest of the tasting? Sorry, we do need to go through everything else. I do know that. But yeah, no, thank you. Do you have any, so you're saying you'd like to do other stuff. Do you have any other brands that you have that kind of relationship with around the world that it kind of opens that up? Or you said you represented them in the UK for a while. Do you have any relationships like that elsewhere?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the whiskey world feels quite small in one sense, which is lovely. There are a number of distilleries. I know the guys at Kuru, for example. I'm sure Sam has lots of connections as well. I think for us, it's just, the focus the last sort of 6 to 12 months has been, getting the single malt and the rye releases lined up for this year. But I think there is always the kind of the plan to have a couple of experimental things in the pipeline, be them single casks, brewery collabs, or potentially another blend. Sam, have you got anyone in mind that you particularly want to?
No, we should probably go on a big trip around the world and go and visit some people and make some more connections there, shouldn't we? Let's do it immediately.
I'm happy to carry the bags.
Let's go do it.
Brilliant.
Can I just ask very quickly?
Yeah, sorry.
Are there any plans for London whiskey? So working with the other London distilleries?
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah, no, there hasn't been yet. I mean, Bimber, the other whiskey distillery that I know are releasing whiskey. I think Renegade are laying down some casks, but I don't think they've released anything yet. Is there anyone else, Sam, I missed?
No, that's it, isn't it? In the kind of in the city limits.
I think just outside there are some who are just moving from gin into whiskey.
I mean, it would be fun, wouldn't it, to do a blend of all the London and near London-based stuff. That would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to be involved in that conversation, seeing if you get everyone to actually agree.
Yeah,
I promise to review it on the radio.
Oh, yeah, we'll set up a whole new sipping session just for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was difficult enough getting Adam at Sonoma to agree to our blends when he sent the stuff over, because we'd have to send him samples across the pond, and then he'd try it, and then he'd call up and be like, "I don't like it," or like this stuff. And that was hard enough, just with one other person to deal with. So maybe if we grab it,
you can just meet up.
At least it's close. You could just do it together around the same table. It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Just to check, are you in Bow off Roman Road?
Yes.
That's it, Nick. You have it correct. And Dave, we've just been drinking the blend, the 2021 blend, and we are it's probably about time to pour the 2022 rye. That was a lovely whiskey to start us with. Thank you very much.
No worries.
And hi, Dave. You are late, but don't worry.
I'm saving some of that.
Oh, wow. I feel like I'm riding a cowboy with this one. Something I have to say I haven't done very often.
In what way?
Let's not
All
go
this
into this
wonderful
too much
leather
further.
and sweat and dirty horse and hay. It's very
Mhm.
funky. Also a bit of
Mm.
juniper and citrus.
Mm.
I do
Yeah,
miss the
funky.
video in Vegas.
Mm.
Yeah, funky. You are right. Ooh.
Richard, I'm not in the doghouse. Not yet.
So yeah, I guess a little bit about this one then. So this is our 2022 rye, which is a vatting of about 15 to 16 casks altogether of French oak, bourbon, regenerated wine casks, and then a little bit of brandy cask. And then this is, the same mash bill as the one we added before. So 55% malted barley, 55% malted rye, 45% malted barley, which is Marisotta in this case, which is a heritage ale variety. All of the barley and the rye comes from Norfolk. So all around the top end, East Anglia, all kind of around Great Ryborough, north of Norwich. And then the fermentation time is about very long for everything we do. Basically, we try and extend it all the way up to kind of 5-6 days for everything. It's just the kind of the rotation that works through the fermenters, then to the stills. It kind of works perfectly on a 7-day rotation. So even if it's finished before that, it won't get distilled until the kind of the 8th day, which sometimes leaves it a kind of 1 or 2 day kind of lactic rest, just to kind of grow a bit more funk once the fermentation's finished. And then double pot distillation, I'd say quite normal cut points for rye. You go a bit deeper than single malt, so down to kind of 59 to the 60% for the tails cut. So we kind of tried to keep quite a lot of the kind of the funk in there from the fermentation to go all the way through for this one, to kind of keep it fruity, keep it interesting, and then to try and not rely on cask impact so heavily as other things. So it's kind of trying to strike a balance between the kind of the new make flavor and the kind of cask interaction, and then a bit of oxidization to bring it all together. So we're trying to kind of balance those two things, rather than just blast it with oak or other stuff over the top. And this is what you get.
So I'm loving the salami.
Mm.
And you've also got the old Danish way of having bacon, which is the maple Danish.
Mm.
I'm liking how it is so different, but then we're also seeing some similarities and getting some of the flavors through, so we can tell what you added to the blend, because pineapple and tropical fruits have been coming through on this one as well, which is what was in the blend as well. So you can see it's. I do want to do a tasting once. I did one with a rum where it was a blended rum, and they gave us each individual rum to try that went into the final product. And that was so interesting, because you go, oh, that brings this part in, that brings that part in, that brings that part in. And then there's a bit at the end where, well, where did that flavor come from? Because that's in none of them.
Yeah.
But it's how they interact with one another, and they bring out something slightly different in each other. And that is really interesting.
It is.
It's always.
Sorry?
Yes.
Sorry, I think it was black tart at the rum show, and we got to make our own. I haven't dared try mine because I have a feeling I got slightly carried away with the really funky ones.
I think that's the thing, yeah. So we, when we're kind of doing the tasting for the vatting, and you're sampling all of the casks to work out which ones are going to go together into that blend, it is always quite interesting that it's not necessarily the ones that kind of have the biggest flavor profile that are the most noticeable. It could be ones that are quite bland that go into this whole thing, that making everything together. And as soon as you pull one of those things out, there's just it just feels like there's a hole in the whole blend, in the whole kind of flavor profile, and you can bring it back in and you're like, oh yeah, there it is. But even if it's not very remarkable on its own, and it's not kind of adding, it's more just like you've taken something away if you remove it. So
it's almost kind of like being a chef. You have to use the seasoning. The seasoning itself might be quite simple, but if you take the seasoning out of the food, everything falls flat.
It's just completely flat. Then there's nothing to build anything on. So I think when we always think about blends, it's just as important to kind of, if there's a problem with the blend, it's not working, it's always a problem, to remove something rather than keep adding things in is usually the first thing to go to, because it usually fixes stuff if you recognize what thing to pull out. rather than just adding more stuff until everything's really confused.
I just want to bring something up from the chat because what is funk? I'll leave Fee and Ed. I'll leave you two to think about the answer for that. It's funky, but there's quite an important point that Eric brought out there. Like he was going to say sweet manure, but didn't want to put anyone off. And it's the funny thing about whiskey is that the flavors we get out of it, if we described anything else in the entire world with that flavor, it would be a negative. But in whiskey, it's a positive. I did a tasting a while back and I got ashtrays. Now, any other walk of life, I would say that's disgusting. But in this whiskey, it was such a good flavor. And so do not worry about what you get out of it, and it's a positive flavor and describing it. This is what whiskey is. It's the craziness about it. We get these things and I don't know, does it remind us of childhood? Please don't say ashtrays remind me of childhood. But there's some, it just works. And that's what I get from this. The damp books, as people say, the mustiness, that works so well in this combination of flavors.
It's worth saying that I think we always wanted to have enough barley in the mash bill to balance out that spice, to have that kind of fruity, mellow undertone, so that the spice really sits out and you can really pick it out. Works beautifully, sipping it neat, but also when you're making cocktails with a rye whiskey that has that balance of fruit and spice, that's a lovely thing with when you're making drinks.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job. So we're going to take ammonia as a good thing here, just after my last comment. Brie rinds definitely is a good thing. I know some people don't like brie and cheese, but brie, yes. Cheese, yes. And just so everyone knows, below us on the screen, there's links to these products in the East London Liquor Co. shop. They actually were out of stock, but these two lovely people have made some available for us. So if this is something you like, it's available right now in the East London Liquor Co. shop. You can get it on now, or we'll be sending out links in email afterwards as well, so you can catch up. Because I know people have different ways of when they buy whiskey. Some like to buy when they're drunk, and some like to wait until you sober up afterwards. I know at festivals, I enjoy myself, and I imagine I will buy a bottle at the end. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. and buy that. And then I over-enjoy myself, and I buy nothing. And so I am one of those people that will come back a couple of days later and pick up then with a slightly clearer head, you could say. But let's get back to the comment. So nice chili chocolate vibe. Ooh.
There's always chocolate in pretty much everything we make. There's a distillery character somewhere. Like it's that powdered, like hot chocolate powder seems to be in whatever we do, no matter what we do in a distillery or the distillation. There's always chocolate there somewhere in some form.
Especially if you add the water and then you get rose and violet dark chocolates. There's a lot going on, particularly when you do add the water, which if anyone's finding anything too spicy, water's perfect with rye. You've got the ham and cheese toasty, and then you've got a light rye bread with this wonderful roast beef and a little bit of mustard creme fraiche, tiny bit of horseradish in there. Just beautiful.
I'm loving this. There's so many good notes from Fee, and then we've got a deconstructed mushroom and jalapeno pizza. Got Jamaican rum coming through for Aiden.
It's the esters.
Yeah.
But those fruity, funky esters. I definitely get parallels with rum, and Chris goes so far to say agricole rum, and that kind of funky, fruity pineapple sense is definitely something I get from rum agricole, and I'm really enjoying it on this. And
it's dirty, which is just wonderful.
So let's go on to, so how would you two describe funk? Let's start with
it's kind of that ester rich combination of slightly earthy, slightly musty, and slightly overripe fruit, so overripe bananas and pineapples combined into one. And it is one of those, as you say, Dan, if you were to describe it to anyone in any walk other than rum and whiskey, they'd say, well, that sounds a bit peculiar. But with whiskey and rum, it adds a really delightful character to it. It's a really unique, enjoyable character.
And you've got different types of funk as well. So you've got funk, that's one level. So that's the overripe pineapples, the overripe apples. Then you've got the dirty funk. So let's bring in the burnt tires. Let's bring in wetsuits. Then you've got the farmyard funk. So you've got the silage, you've got the manure, you've got the dirty cowboy, let's face it.
Yeah.
It's the hay, it's the it's just all that sweat and the licorice and saddles and everything.
So yeah, that I think is quite a good description of funk. And I'm quite glad you two are on here because I did a tasting recently for a product, for a whiskey, and it was funky. And my notes were Ford Cortina, the back seats that used to be leather. And it just reminded me of that childhood smell of dirty leather in the back of a car. Yeah, high school gym mats. Yes, that's it.
Yes. I just love the fact you quickly said it was your childhood backseat of a car, because I'm afraid some dirty minds in the chat were probably going to go there.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, but did the Ford Cortinas even still exist? I just remember being driven to school, kindergarten. My dad's mate in the back of one. There was like 5 of us on the back seat, and that's what it reminded me of. That funk,
and that sweatiness as well.
Yeah,
which in real life is awful. You say sweat and you just think, ugh. In whiskey and rum, it's actually really gorgeous.
Yeah, that's it. Now, unfortunately, we are going to have to say thank you, Sam and Alex. You have shared 2 fantastic whiskies with us, and I hope everyone has enjoyed tasting and tasting and exploring. Just a quick hands up in the chat. How many people is this the first time you've got to enjoy an East London whiskey? Okay, I know that there's a delay. This is the one problem with asking for feedback from in the chat. There's a slight delay of how it comes through, but I suppose we can come on to that. So let me know what we're going to have. There we go. There. Oh, there's loads. It's all just uploaded. Awesome. That's what this is about. Getting today, like these sipping sessions are all about first taste, exploring a style further, but trying both expressions and brands for the first time. I hope you've enjoyed them as much as I have. And join me in saying thank you. Oh, then Sonoma is made out in California. This was just a collaboration, Nicholas, between both parties. But if there's anything you want to say, Alex and Sam, got a minute or so, please share.
No, I just say thank you. Thanks for having us. It's been great seeing all the comments. It's such an eye-opener to get all the different tasting notes. And Fee, your pastrami tasting note is going to stick with me. That's pretty genius.
Yeah. Thank you. They're beautiful. I really want to try your Madeira cast now.
Ah.
You'll have to head to Barra.
All right, thank you very much. We're now going to have a 3-minute break. So people, head to the loo, recharge your water, clean out your glasses, and see you on the other side. We'll go straight into the introduction video for the Oxford Artisan Distillery, and then you'll see Fee, Ed, myself, and their head distiller, master distiller, on the other side.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. I am walking down a street in Oxford called Cheney Lane. It's just behind this great building, which is Oxford Brookes University. And as I approach here, a lovely welcoming opening gate lets me know that I am at the Oxford Artisan Distillery, who are farming a new approach to spirits. And you can do whisky tours and distillery tours here. And here's a pretty good sign of what's to come. A large 500 litre fermenting vat, which is no longer in use, but actually would have been used for all the whiskies that are out at the moment and being tasted today. So we're just going to follow this round. This is a site that used to be a farm itself. It was the Morrill family farm, which works quite well given that we at the Oxford Artisan Distillery are a farm distillery growing heritage grains, mixed populations of heritage grains, all within 50 miles of the distillery, except one or two exceptional farms who really want to farm like us. You will hear a lot about farming today with us. Okay, so we just make our way around. We've been known as Toad for many years. Toad, well explained by the van here, is simply an acronym that got out of control. So Toad, or the Oxford Artisan Distillery. So here we go, we're at the entrance to the distillery site here. So follow me, and in we go. So this is what it looks like when you enter the distillery. We've got the barn and lab here. This is the visitors area and the central forum of the distillery. This is our distillers and production lab where Chico, our master distiller, and his team work. In here is the distillery itself with a tour going on. We'll go back to that. Right, so we enter the barn and we have the tour team working very hard. And this is our bar, which we open seasonally because it's pretty cold in here during the winter. And this is where we meet and where we conduct tours, and pretty much any visitor to the distillery will go. The soup of the day is Oxford Rye Whisky. So yeah, you can see lots of nice awards and heritage grain propaganda. There's John Letts, our head of grain. I told you it was cold. And some heritage grains themselves hanging beautifully. And this is an old threshing barn, which works quite well because it was a building designed to process the grains that we are now growing. There's Chico riding a barrel in the park next to our distillery. And as you can see, it's a really nice old building. Okay. And now we will make our way out. There we go. Back to the tour scene. You see our white spirits, our merch, and then very importantly, all of our whiskies and different releases. Up here, more heritage grains and some wormwood for the production of absinthe. And of course, a nice decorative cask. So coming back out, we're going to ignore the distillery for now, and we're going to go into Chico and his team's lab. So you've got some little test 50 litre casks in there. A nice English oak cask experiment below there. That didn't go too well. We have lots of botanicals for making gin and absinthe and other spirits like that. And there's some heritage grain flour. Heritage grain is good for baking, just as it's also good for whiskey making. Here you have lots of cask samples and other samples that we've collected over the years. And then some booze that we've either got free or we've bought because we want to compare it to what we're doing, or a combination. So yeah, this is the lab. This is the other side of production that people don't talk about. Both admin and cleaning are a big part of a distiller's life. So there is the latter, the former, the admin part. Although it looks very clean in here, it must be said. as discussed, we were formerly known as Toad and still are at times. So there is a Toad made from some heritage grains. Right, onwards. And we're just going to ignore the distillery for a brief moment and have a quick peek. There's a tour happening in the distillery house here. There's our trusty forklift truck, which gets known as El Diablo. Lots of inert vessels for carrying liquid, a must in any distillery. And then I'm just going to show you quickly another important part of our production. Not quite as romantic and as amazing as the distillery. Here is our bottling area. And our still. And if I've timed this well, we'll make our way into the distillery. So this is where it all happens, apart from the bottling and all the lab stuff. So there is our main still, our big still, Nautilus, custom made with the South Devon Railway. And the whiskies we produce and are drinking today have been produced in there. There's our condenser and our smaller still Nemo, and some tanks for collection of spirits down there, and for blending, and more big IBCs, as well as some casks that are either ready to go to warehouse or ready to be filled. And here is our mash tun and fermentation vessel, and a load more casks, some sherry pipes. There's an Oloroso pipe. I think this is a port pipe here. There's two Oloroso, and a load of New American oak casks and things like that. Let's we can go up the stairs, which you can't normally do on a tour. And there you can see some fermentation occurring. See if I can get some bubbling. There we go. So there's an open top fermenter, as they say. This is quite a nice view. So yeah, just quick recap of the distillery. And that is the Oxford Artisan Distillery. I'm going to quickly show you now where we are in relation to the Dreaming Spires of Oxford. So there's the distillery, and just not too far there are the famous Dreaming Spires of Oxford.
Hi everyone, we're back now. I hope you've had a nice little break and got ready for our next brand, where we will be meeting Chico, Master Distiller for the Oxford Artisan Distillery. And in the background, in the chat, will be Charlie, whose dulcet tones and voice you've just been listening to. And we might have fast forwarded a little bit because it took quite a long time for him to walk across that bit. But please, Chico, please come on to screen.
Hey everyone, me and Ned. I mean, stunning. What a presentation that was. Like, they just like David Attenborough.
Hang on a second.
And with one.
Hang on a sec. Has everyone else got difficulty with the volume, with the sound, or is it just me? Sorry, Chico, your sound's gone a little bit funky.
Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you, but it's a little bit broken. If at very worst, what we might need to do is flip it round and have Charlie on screen and you in the background. But let's just try a little bit. Talk again.
What about now? Can you hear me well?
Yes, but it's delayed. It's not lip synced. And it sounds like you've got to. Do you have our YouTube video up as well on a different screen?
No, I don't.
Oh, because I can hear me coming reverberating through your. Through
What
your.
about now? Oh, I can hear something.
Right, let's try for another minute or so, and if not, Charlie, we might have to get you up. Sorry, Chico, if this doesn't happen, but this is why we have two people as well. This little backup.
Cool.
That's a bit better. That's good. Perfect. So, Chico, the Oxford Artisan Distillery. We've already had a little bit of a description of what heritage grains are from Charlie in the chat, but can you tell us what heritage grains are?
So heritage grains for us are as diverse as possible, species and varieties from before they were started to be selected intensively by humanity. So just pre-industrial revolution, 1800s around, and it's basically grains. Back in the day, people wouldn't have a clue what they were growing. I mean, they knew that what the difference was between rye and barley and wheat, but they were just like growing whatever was in their bag. So they were just like throwing like hundreds of varieties of rye, wheat, barley, einkorn, emmer, spelt, you name it, to a field and see what used to grow. So, I mean, grain, to be fair, it's a grass. And it's a grass that has been domesticated over thousands and thousands of years. And we like to work a lot with heritage grains because we see that with such a diversity of grains, there's a lot of resilience, not only in the field, but also a lot of fun to play with when it comes to flavors in whiskey that we're going to try tonight for sure.
Does that mean that because it's a little bit more random, a little bit more varied, that each harvest is going to be completely different for you?
In some ways, we can say that that will definitely going to happen. So let's imagine that in the field of rye, we have innumerous varieties of rye, and some varieties will enjoy growing in that field particularly. Others will hate. I mean, will hate like the soil structure, will hate the climate of that place, so they might disappear. But then rye also cross-pollinates. It's one of the few grains that cross-pollinates. For example, wheat or barley don't cross-pollinate. And rye will always have new varieties coming up after every harvest. So there is like a lot of genetic diversity in the field that will kind of like keep going. It's like a curve. Like there's like odd bits in extremes, but definitely like a core kind of population, let's say. So we always talk about populations of grains, of heritage grains. We never talk about single varieties. Because that's the beauty that we find in the way we farm and also in the way we distill as well.
Cool. Sorry, I've taken you onto a technical. Started you straight away with a technical question and a different part to what you do. Tell us about your part, because the grains come to you, and what do you do? What's your role, and how do you make this stuff great?
So we like to see ourselves a bit as farmers, as distillers, although we don't we don't have any farm. I mean, we just have our own grains, grains that John, that you saw during Charlie's video, our head of farming has been collecting from seed banks and bulking up for the past 30 years. We work with our farming partners. We kind of like rent the lands and provide the seeds, grow under the most natural way possible, so with no chemicals at all, and no touching the soil, just trying to replicate what a natural ecosystem would do when it comes to grain. And then I think it gets a lot of complicated because, I mean, people might work with specific varieties of barley, but then we, in a distillery, need to be able to process every single grain, because sometimes we don't know even what we can play with. So my role is to run all the production at the distillery and deliver the liquids that we can enjoy today. So we do everything from scratch in the place that you saw earlier on. It's quite a small distillery. I mean, Charlie did a brilliant job showing all the corners around, even our little secrets that are quite quirky. But we're quite a small space that's produced quite a fair bit of volume, to be fair. So we mash the grain, we ferment it, we ferment the mash itself, so we don't separate the grain from the liquid. So the grain has time to ferment itself as well, and also we distill with the grain and distill. So we allow the grain to have as much contact with the process as possible, so we can capture as much essence of the grains we use as possible. So we like to work with rye, with wheat, einkorn, emmer, spelt, oats, corn as well. I mean, I have to say the corn package that you said, I mean, it's delicious. I hope we were frying our own corn as well to pair with our corn whiskey. But yeah, we work with our bespoke stills built by the last steam train manufacturers in UK, in South Devon, and yeah, we're going from there. We like to see our jobs as trying to express the grain in the bottle and internalizing the grain forever as a liquid. I mean, grain will go off by itself. The bread will get moldy. Beer definitely will go off after a few years, but whiskey can keep going forever. And actually, in a bottle, people might say that it actually improves. So
fantastic. I'm going to say it's about time we poured a whiskey. Would you say we should pour the graduate or the single tawny port?
Let's start with the graduates. I actually put it already as well. So I mean, the graduate was our fourth release. Therefore, the graduates. We have been telling a story about our grains since we started. We started 5 years ago, and we released our first whiskey in 2021. And since then, we have been kind of showing different sides of the rye that we work with, because working with such a diverse population of rye also allow us to work with so much diversity when it comes to flavors, and depending how we work with it, how we mash it, ferment it, distilling or mature it in the casks, the grain will take different directions when it comes to flavor. So the graduate for us was what we thought would be ready to show to the world as an Oxford rye whiskey. So it has a lot of fruity dimension. Our rye is known to have this kind of like custardy, pastry notes, quite nutty. But East London Liquor Company was like delivering beautiful funkiness, and funkiness is something that we really like as well in Oxford. So we get a little like savoriness, earthy notes. I mean, it's equal measures of herbal and peppery, but a lot of fun to discover this dram.
I like one, because obviously we've just been to a rye from somewhere else. There are similarities, but once again, it's a completely different experience. I love that.
Really distinct.
Yeah, it does have bourbon-esque notes to it as well.
So the Graduate was it's mature between 3 and 4 years. It's a blend between 6 American oak casks, different sizes, different toasting levels, sharing levels. The mash bill is 90% Maslin, which is the common name given to rye and wheat grown together in the same field, and just 10% malted barley. But if you ask how much rye that is in this whiskey, is around 70%. So 70 rye, 20% wheat, and 10 malted barley. Was double distilled.
Just on that quickly, members who got our December club bottle, if you remember from the letter, I wrote all about Maslin and what that is, that mix. Yet Fee's got it. Thank you very much, Fee. About the mix, and going back to heritage grains that Chico said before, it's about how they're all grown together. So this has a similar mix to what we had, just to give you a little bit more context. And those who weren't members or aren't members to get that bottle, you missed out.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see a synergy between rye and wheat. That's why we like to grow Maslin, and it's our main crop. So just having, let's say, 10% of wheat added to a rye field boosts the yield in 30%, just because different species help each other to grow. And I mean, just beautiful, like the diversity that you can see in the field. I mean, it's not only grain growing. I mean, there's like clover, there's poppies, and a lot of other flowers. It's a lot of joy when we finally get to summer and see the fields quite high as well.
It's kind of fascinating how you've wound the clock back, and you're, instead of using the mass-produced common varieties today that have been bred for yield, you're looking back at these heritage grains from centuries ago. You're also looking at ways in which centuries ago you look to maximize yield and work with nature in a very collaborative sense to try and get as much produce as you can. There's something very poetic about that.
Yeah, I think what you said that is absolutely key. Is working with nature is what we are focused on, and it's one of the things that make us also feel Oxford. Is that Oxford is this hub of a lot of tradition with innovation. So looking into the past to find the best examples, to innovate in the way we do things is essential. And I mean, when it comes to nature, which is such a complex thing, concept, just trying to go with the flow instead of trying to scientifically explain it. It's sometimes the best answer when it comes to experimenting.
A kind of leap of faith that nature knows best and it will work out.
That's why we call it Mother Nature.
Too true. Too true.
All right, let's start bringing in bits. Sophie, I'm about to ask you for your tasting notes because I think they're awesome. But it's nice just to pick out a few things like Taste Like Summer from Fergal. We've got aniseed twists from Mark, herbal notes, dry salt, damp mortarboards. I think I saw earlier, and someone else had damp on the nose as well, which, going back to what we said before, is a good thing in what we're doing here. And I've got to stop hitting my glass randomly with my hand. I'm gesturing too much. Aniseed peppermint golden syrup. Yeah, but Vin, are you liking this? Did I pick the wrong whiskey to share with you at this in December? But Fee, please share with us what you're getting.
It's lovely. It's very, very bang done. It's very fresh and juicy. You've got Dime Bar on the nose. There's, those notebooks with the wire hoops. There's that metal element, and you've got the gym horse. So it's the polished, the glazed, effectively oak. You've got the Danish biscuits. I love the potato cakes, but when you add water, you get much heavier rye. You've got Bakewell tarts. There's waffles with vanilla ice cream, creme caramel, almond croissant, and also Peshwari naan, which was unexpected. And there's wonderful copper kettles and lemon curd. And that's just the nose.
Wow. Ed, do you want to go into the taste?
I don't know. I think I'm going to struggle to follow that if I'm entirely honest. But what I would say is that it's so bright and juicy and fresh, and I love that it has that menthol character, particularly towards the end of the palate. But it's done in quite a delicate, restrained way. It feels more like kind of mint humbugs as opposed to blunt mint, and I really like that delicate character. I think that works really, really well.
Can I also just say it's something that comes up sometimes in our club chats? Yes, a lot of people get different things and taste whiskey in different ways and can get all of these descriptions, and others don't, and it's not an issue. The number one question in your tasting is, do I like this?
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah, like I wish I could get Peshwari naan on this. It's like your descriptions make me hungry.
That's the trouble, isn't it? And on the palate, you've got this wonderful Danish cheese called Dambo. I haven't had that for absolutely years, but it's got that caraway seed element to it. So it's just beautiful. And also, I would recommend do add water. Regardless of any ABVs, it just really opens it up. If anyone's finding the spice a little bit too much, if anyone's finding it slightly dry, the water you get so much revealed. It's fabulous. And that's why I'm two glassing. And to avoid doing what Dan's doing, I do have a box to the side because otherwise they'd all be flying everywhere by now.
Chico, do you have a favourite of the whiskies you've created thus far?
Ooh, that's an hard question. It's a bit asking what your favorite child is in a way. But I mean, the Gratitude is definitely on the top. I think that it shows so well what we are doing at Oxford, and shows such a pretty side of the grains we're using as well in the distillation process. I mean, our stills are quite unique, and they definitely impact the flavor. So the heating source, it's definitely, it gives a lot of kind of a hint of smoke in the aftertaste, for example. Then the columns, they work the ethanol in the flavor molecules in such a good way that we get so much flavor even at a high ABV. And the condensers are coils in water baths, so they could be considered like a kind of a worm tubs, and that definitely has some influence in the mouthfeel, in the type of flavors that we usually get in Oxford whiskies. These kind of like savory, meaty, kind of leathery notes, and yeah. I mean, we are on our 10th release at the moment. They always have been different. I mean, there will be a point that it's always changing. Yeah, I guess that's. But my favorite one is always like the last one that came to the show. I'm always excited when it comes to getting on a new projects. I mean, now we just got to blend the next batch, and I'm just like thrilling with all the casks that we've been finding. I mean, because maturing at the distillery, maturing in offsites, I mean, as you saw, you don't have so much space. I mean, all these factors, they are just fascinating.
And do you have? Is there something you haven't been able to create yet, but you know you've got this idea in your mind of something you want to do? Maybe it's a different grain and the flavor profile. Maybe it's a cask type that you think you haven't tried yet you'd like to try. Is there something just in there that you'd like to create at some point in the future?
Yes, definitely, and we have been working on that. So as we have such a rich character coming from our fields and in our grain, we want to allow it to show it as best as we can. So we're working more and more into our fermentation. So currently our fermentations they start with that just spontaneously, so without adding any kind of like commercial yeast, and then we just like crack on with some distillers yeast, which is, to be fair, it's quite funky. It's a cross between distillers and brewers, a bit like saison yeast, so a lot of esters being produced. But we want to get to a state that we just like do just natural fermentation, maybe a bit inspired by rum industry with some dunder, and some other like light bulbs around. That's I'll be very excited to share with you in the future.
Any plans to use a Pinot de Gironde cask?
We do have one or two Pinot de Gironde casks, yeah, but that's a very good shout, definitely.
I just think you've got the tawny port with your grain, with your base spirit. That would just work wonderfully.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that
Yeah.
sweetness. It's sort of a fruit brandy, but more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we really like to play with a lot of casks. I mean, not only just on the wood side. We like to play with American oak of different seasoning times, or different cooperage techniques. French oak, chestnuts, Portuguese oak, Hungarian oak, Spanish oak. But we really like used casks as well. I mean, from brandies, calvados, any kind of ports, sherry. We love Almazenilla sherry butts work with our whiskey because of all the saltiness and the fresh apple character. Brings a lot of refreshing notes to the grain character as well. Yeah, we and I mean, with such a broad spectrum of flavors that we can get from our grains. The cask plays a crucial role on it, and we can see that's in the next whiskey as well. But
Which we should do now onto the tawny port.
we're going into tawny port straight away.
Yeah, you say it's time to pour it. But I just want to say one thing: the Graduate, we have an event deal. If you look at the email, there's a discount code that gets you £20 off the Graduate if this is something you like and want to get a bottle of from the Oxford's website. I believe it's Summerton Grad.
Yeah, Summerton Grad. Yes, I mean the Graduate was actually technically already sold out, but we kept some stock back to for this event. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am loving how you guys do that. East London did the same thing. Actually, East London, it was out of stock. They just had a few cases left over in the back of a warehouse. And thank you for doing that for us now. And the tawny port, this is something you've made just for us and for this event. So
yeah, so the tawny port it's one of for right now, and I hope you enjoy. It's so unique, and it's same mash bill, but it spent majority of its maturation in a quite old tawny port pipe. So it's 500 liters, super old-fashioned cask, and I mean it's also available at cask strength. But this is a very good ABV to enjoy it. It's probably my favorite kind of like alcohol strength to enjoy this whiskey. And the character is just like exuberant. I mean, it's very nutty. It's very earthy. I mean, you can feel the tawny with a lot of like kind of prunes. I mean, there's like this rum vibe, a bit like molasses as well, a bit like sticky toffee pudding, a bit. I mean, it's floral, herbal as well, spicy. I mean, I just love it. Just love this one as well, and the heat of smoke is also noticeable from our stills.
Yeah,
especially once we distill with the grain in the still. I mean, the grain just scorch around the steam coils and just delivers this kind of like a burnt toast, heat of smoke kind of character.
I have a big soft spot for port casks. People who remember the first 2 bottles that I had for the club that I had a say in were both port finished whiskies. And it's the first place I go. So when I was chatting to Charlie about what we do for the event, this was you may remember I was very forceful. Yes, you do have. Is that the first or the second? Because they were both. Do you have the grain or the blend?
13, 15 years is the grain.
Okay, yeah, that was the Gervan. Yes, port is my favorite way. I've got 2 types. I won't share the second one because I'm trying to figure out how I can buy some and put some whiskey in it. But port is.
Yeah, I mean, as a Portuguese distiller myself, I'm quite inclined to port as well. So we have every single port type of cask in house, from tawny to white port, vintage ports, later bottom vintage, ruby, muscatel from Douro. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Do you have links over in Portugal that helps you get access to the port pipe slightly easier?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I at some point in my life I was into wine industry. Actually, majority of my life being raised it's in between vineyards and casks, and definitely now it's a lot of fun because I just get on the phone with some fellow winemakers and hey guys, please just like let me get like a few casks of this wine because it's just beautiful, or I mean, and get really into different Portuguese wine regions to get specific grape varieties or wineries. Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I just read the note as I was about to say something. I completely forgot what I said, but smells like pavement just before a summer rain. I love that. That is such a good smell.
So this cask is more to say. So the liquid we are enjoying, it spent 1.5 years in American oak, virgin American oak, before was racked into this tawny pipe, where it spends almost 3 years. And this whiskey matured fully in the distillery. It was one of those casks that it was always around, and everyone that came to the distillery and kind of like engaged with us was like, oh yeah, you must try this one. Yeah, it's beautiful. And so when we released it, we had kind of like a cult following going already for it. And I mean, just the fact of being in the distillery, you saw like there's like a big shutter gates, and this, I mean, the environment changes so quickly. It's a bit different from let's say a cold, closed, dark warehouse where we can keep casks as well. So the liquid contracts and expands a lot inside the cask over time. And
we've been talking about casks. I just want to go to something that Charlie said in the video, and I know I'm taking us in a completely different thing. We'll come back onto the notes you get. English oak cask test that didn't work. So we've been talking about like how good like the port casks are. What went wrong with the English oak cask?
So English oak casks, we got 4, and they were the 4 first casks that we got. And I mean, they were built back then by one of definitely the last coopers in the country, 20-liter casks. And of course, they were filled with the first spirit made in house as well. So, I mean, you might see that, like, I mean, some were so good that was just 20 liters. Let's face it. So we just kept sampling it, and when we noticed the cask was already empty, so there was no point in releasing it. So others, they were not as good as we expected, but those casks, they definitely impact with a lot of cool flavor.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, sorry. Let's go back to this one. I remember that from before. But Fee, can we get your tasting notes, please?
I love it. There's an awful lot going on. You've got those wonderful strawberry fruit gum notes, but also a ham that's been left to just sit in Coca-Cola and then covered in a marmalade crust.
I haven't cooked like that in years.
Wow, beautiful.
It is beautiful. You've got eau de vie going on as well, and it's just it. I think everyone should add water as well. You get so many different notes going on. That again, there's a little bit of juniper, a little bit of citrus, and then you've got strawberry laces, orange creme brulee, and just lots of strawberries. It's beautiful.
Now that is, yeah, I'm with you. And Ed, what are you getting?
I think it's wonderful. When I first had it, I was reminded of kind of toasted rye bread just smothered in jam. I think the combination of that rye cereal spice combined with the really red fruit jamminess of the port cask is a wonderful combination. Quite an unusual combination. I can't say, I'm thinking on my feet, I can't think of any rye whiskey I've had ex Tawny Port, and it's beautiful.
It's a lovely combination. Anyone who wants this, there's a link below. There's 48 bottles, I believe, of this release.
Yeah, 48 bottles just for Summerton.
Yep.
That's very exclusive.
Yeah.
Can I just say?
Go on.
Sorry, Ben had a wonderful tasting note, which was wet Labrador. The reason that some of my bottles are more full than you would expect is because my old greyhound is actually a Summerton member. So do sign your dogs up, and then you can buy more than one bottle, including, I would say, 2 or 3 of this.
I have to say that this cast definitely had a wet Labrador around, and this is Charlie's dog, which I'm the godfather, and Santino, his name was raised in the distillery, so he joined the distillery when we joined 5 years ago, and he has been part of our history as well. So wet Labrador is definitely a very good shout.
I thought that was such a great note. I also love you've got some Prit stick in there and also schnapps. It's fabulous.
This is the first. I haven't seen Toby in here. Toby and me share. Actually, Ed, you were there as well. We first tried, different times, but we tried an Austrian whiskey, if you remember, and it was made by a schnapps distillery, and that schnapps distillery flavor came through in everything they created, and it was vile.
Oh no!
Oh, they're like 200 years of producing schnapps and 3 or 4 years of producing whiskey in the same machinery. So there was just a residue of flavor that came through everything. And I've never heard of schnapps in a good light because of, I've never thought of it in a good light because of that whiskey. But in this instance, it does work with rye. You're right, that spicy, that herbal note is something that works.
And Copenhagen Distillery are doing a schnapps cask whiskey.
Are they?
They're fabulous, but I just love those elements. And again, you've got more caraway seeds. So this is just bringing back so many childhood memories, including drinking an awful lot of port.
Just to set up the next bit, are there any other Danish whiskey distilleries that are even worth talking about?
I've heard of a couple more.
I know of one other as well, but it's
They're
good.
Very good.
To be honest, I actually think it's a good thing. It's a phrase that me and Ed say to each other a lot. A rising tide. No. Rising tide lifts all ships.
Lifts all boats. Yeah, exactly right. It's great. It's great to see the booming industry. It's great to see people doing different releases, different countries, experimenting. I think that is how you discover new gems, new classics of the future.
I love the chat is counting down how many bottles are left. I think if anyone wants to buy quickly. I've got a greyhound still in the other room. He's quite tempted to get a bottle or two.
It's annoying. I want to pour some more. I've been trying. I've as I said to everyone, like save some. I've been trying to save some, and I want some more of this one. It's going really well. Pardon?
Buy a bottle.
Oh,
they're going to sell out tonight.
I will be, or if it's not all gone. But on that, we probably need to start moving on. But Charlie, can you help Lewis get the code to work in your shop? Because he'd like to buy a bottle. Obviously, that's for the graduate. If you're trying to use that code on the Tawny Port, it's already locked into the price. So the graduate brings it down to the same. That deal brings it down to the same price. So that's might be what's happening, Lewis. Just to answer that. But one last question, Chico. What's your favourite whiskey at the moment? That's not yours.
Ooh, the last one that definitely wowed me was yesterday, Charlie. Copper Sea rye from US. It's a farm distillery, fairly small, super special, direct fire stills, floor malting in house. Beautiful dram.
Very nice. And on that, we are going to have to move on. Thank you so much, Chico and Charlie in the chat. Charlie will stay in the chat to carry on answering questions and helping people out. But we need to move on. We're going to have a short break. Matt, is it possible to run it for a little bit shorter, the break, because we are running late because this whiskey and chat has been too good, quite simply. So could we cut it to perfect? Could we cut it to say a 2-minute break, and then we'll go into the intro video for our next and final distillery, Stauning. And you might recognize one of the people in the intro video because I was over there recently to say hello, just to warn you, there's an ugly face on there. But yeah, thank you so much, Chico. This has been these have been a couple of delicious whiskies to try. Thank you for sharing the December bottle with us as well. That was lovely, really was.
Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the drams.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll see you in a minute, everyone. Dan here at the Stauning Whisky Distillery in Denmark with
Alex, one of the 9 founders of Stauning Whisky. So it was one of my now good friends, Martin, that heard a radio program about whiskey in 2005. He was on his way to a summer house. The story in the radio was, it's easy to make whiskey, but it's difficult to make a good whiskey. We met up at Martin's house, 2005, and discussed, is it possible to make a Danish whiskey? And of course it is. We started in an old butchery because Mogens, the butcher, the father of Martin, Lasse and Jesper, he had a place where you could actually make food. And people are like, making whiskey in a butchery. Well, you had an oven to smoke the grain. You have a huge fridge where you can control the temperature for flour malting. We had a meat grinder where you could grind the grain. We had everything in the butchery for making a whiskey. Stauning is outskirts of Denmark, west part of Denmark. Why we're here, the people are so cool, so fun, so helpful, because everybody helps everybody to succeed. That's part of the DNA of being in a region like this. So now it's extremely important for us to be situated here. We bought this place, the farm, 2007, worked on it for 2 years. 2009, we could start up the first kind of real production of Stauning Whisky and started making a peat-smoked single malt and a non-smoked single malt. Then we made rye, a big part of our heritage in Denmark to have rye. Quickly found out that, wow, this rye is pretty interesting. So the first release was in 2011. And if you can calculate, that's not 3 years. So it's not a whiskey. So we made a whiskey or a product called young rye. It's a dangerous thing to do because people will be like, young, not old. You know, whiskey needs to be old to be good. But we wanted to be transparent, and we are still today with everything we do. So we had an investment in Stauning in 2015 that managed us to be able to design a new distillery using the same way of production. So still flour malting, still we have a weird way of mashing because we do rye, and rye is very difficult to handle. We have small stills, 24 small pot stills. We have open fire stills, so direct flame on the stills, all 24 of them, which creates a special character of Stauning. We wanted to keep that. Now we had the money to do it.
Where does your grain come from?
We use 2 local farmers really in this area. It's important for us to support the local community because this is harsh land out here, sandy soils, and you get a certain type of grain. We've tested areas with the same types of grain but from other areas in Denmark, and it's different. It's way different. But it's important for us to create the style from this area. So the local produce is actually what you taste. So we have 2,500 square meters of flour malting, and in each lane we have about 12 to 13 tons of rye or barley. So we also flour malt the rye. 100% of our grains are flour malted. We've invented special machines, so grain turners, that runs across a lane or floor. So it kind of mixes up the grain. So instead of doing it by hand, getting monkey shoulder, we steep, we spray water on the grain, and we mix the grain up in the floor so we keep an even temperature and even moisture content. Get rid of the carbon dioxide, get some oxygen in there. It takes about 5 to 6 days. Then we move the grain into a kiln where we can dry it and smoke it. Take it up to a mash tun, which is a weird conception of a machine. It's a kind of a washing machine because it's so difficult to mash rye. It gets very sticky. Or when we started up in the beginning, we did it like they did 100 years ago in Scotland. They didn't have a clear wort where they made whiskey. So we don't want to have a clear wort in Stauning whiskey. So we get a kind of an unclear wort with a lot of solids that fits our way of production with these 24 stills or 16 wash stills, direct fire. You kind of burn it a bit, the solids in the still, like you're roasting a pork chop on the pan. You get this caramelized flavors. Very, very important for us. Matured and bottled at the distillery. So everything is done in-house. Then we do a lot of experiments still on our liquid. Can we work on our yeast? Can we work on the grain? How about aging? So maturation. We do still a lot of experiments on different types of wood. For example, we have rum casks from Australia, from Japan, from Caribbean, from South America. 15, 16, 17 different rum casks. Beer casks. We have Tabasco casks just recently coming in. Balsamico casks, so the oldest Balsamico manufacturer in Italy. Maybe it's totally awkward, but you never know.
All right, now to drinking.
Cheers.
Prost. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Some of you will remember some of that information from when we met Alex first in 2021.
Ouch, can't remember.
Yeah, COVID's kind of ruined going back in time massively.
Maybe too much whiskey, I don't know.
That one too. But our journey started with you with your rye as a club bottle a while ago, and oh wow, that really opened up our eyes to rye and started everything that has brought this tasting session on. So thank you so much, Alex, for educating me and us in rye and starting us on a journey, really.
Thank you.
I obviously had the pleasure of meeting Alex recently, but Fee and Ed, I think you met Fee. You said you may well have met Alex at a trade show, a whiskey show.
Yes.
And if you haven't in the crowd met, I can recommend you going that way, because one person you'll also meet, not just Alex potentially, is Jonas, who's in the chat, and he is great fun, quite simply, and a good person to go around the distillery with. But we didn't do this with anyone else, but I think we should start by just pouring one of your whiskies.
Certainly.
Which one would you start with, the Dirty Bastard or the maple syrup?
I think the maple syrup is the easiest one to start off with.
Perfect.
And I have a small sample I pulled today.
I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that came through from our first conversation, Alex, was the experimentation you do with casks. I remember you saying that you purchase a certain number of each type of cask and try it across your different types of liquid, just to see what will work, what will happen. And every time I've had any interaction with you, you've opened up a completely new type of cask to me. Like in what we've just poured, I've only heard once anyone even mention maple syrup, and they hadn't bought the cask. They just said, "Is this something we should do?" I don't know. I've never even thought of it. And you haven't even just gone, "Yeah, we'll do it." You're already 3 years down the line, and at maturation. So what's your favorite cask? So we're going to go into the difficult questions. What's been your favorite cask to play with?
Ouch. That was a difficult one. Well, as we do a lot of experiments, and I literally taste alcohol every day, it's almost a new one coming up every day. No, that's not quite true. This one is absolutely one of my favorites, and I can just add to this that in World Whiskies Awards, like, is it 1 month ago, we won as world's best single cask rye with a rye whiskey finished in maple syrup. So that was an amazing day to actually have that award come to Stauning Whisky. I'm very proud of that. So maple syrup has grown on me. I was actually, when we started doing this, I was a bit afraid that we would introduce too much sweetness to this whiskey, because syrup might be too much. I'm actually not fond of pancakes with maple syrup. It's too sweet for me. But this one interacts with alcohol in a totally different way. It's kind of brown sugars or burnt sugars somehow. I wouldn't say umami, but it's a different flavor. But down that kind of alley on flavors, which is super interesting. So a lot of people are surprised that it's not sweetness that comes from the maple.
And how do they? I've heard this once, but I'm not sure if anyone have heard. How do they create a maple syrup cask?
So run amok in North America, where we buy the casks, they buy bourbon casks or rum casks. Then they actually pour their maple syrup into the casks and give flavor to the maple syrup by the rum or bourbon casks. They then empty the maple syrup out of the casks, and then we could buy them. And we've just recently bought a 20-foot container of more of these delicious barrels. And it's important for us that it's a brand that we know and we work with. The first test we did was not a brand we knew, but now it's a brand we know. I think that's basic for us. In the beginning, we did a lot of testing, as I told you last time you were there. several hundred different kinds of wine, spirits, beer, mezcal, tequila, Calvados, Muscatel, rum, a lot of different casks. And then at some point you figure out, okay, this one fits a Stauning whiskey. Let's find a brand that we can work together with. So for example, our port is now from a Summerton group in Portugal. We get the port cask from them. Miguel Martinez in Spain, Jerez is good at supplying us with the sherry casks. So we tend to find a good brand where we can get the same casks again and again and again, instead of just playing cowboys and trying out different sorts of casks. But my favorite today of experiments is actually our Tabasco cask. So, and it might seem weird to you, and it's also very weird to me to age whiskey in a Tabasco cask. More fun than actually kind of serious somehow. But I had it yesterday again, and it keeps drawing me back to that bottle, that small test bottle I have on my kitchen table. Actually, it's right here, right now. It's just my cask manager. He did it on his table. And it's super, super strong. And if you take too much, it will hurt you. It will kick you. It's like you will cry when you do this. And this is directly from the cask. And we, of course, need to dilute it somehow with some other casks, so it's not like hurting you. But so experiments, I think that's us. It's a new cask coming up as our favorite. But for now, it's the maple syrup that does it for me. Combined with, now you had the Artisan just a couple of minutes ago, and they do port and sherry, and we also do some ports and tawny ports that are amazing right now. So yeah, almost new every day.
I want to use that Tabasco in a Smoky Mary.
Yes,
that sounds superb.
Yes,
that would
absolutely
be incredible.
And is it a Tabasco cask that they've used to create aged Tabasco full term, or is it something like the maple syrup they just used to flavor a cask?
No. So the company Tabasco, when they make Tabasco, they actually put it into an oak cask for 3 years. So the Tabasco you buy in the bottle has been aged in an oak cask for 3 years before they put it into a bottle. So that's standard for Tabasco. I guess we can get many casks if you want that.
Do you get the salty notes as well? Because one of the things they do on the cask is they top the barrel with salt.
It's fun because you don't actually get it in the taste, but you get it in the nose. So when you nose your rye whiskey with that Tabasco flavors, you get the saltiness in the nose, but not in the taste.
Almost as you might from a coastal whiskey. That kind of salinity through. That's really
salinity. Yes, that's the good word.
Let's go back to what we've got in front of us. Sorry, this is what I love about what you do. It's just so much intrigue in trying new things. But there was a question earlier: is this full term in maple syrup cask, or is it starter?
No. So we do a finish because if we were to do a full time, it would actually become sweet. Too sweet. So we try to balance it out. And Denmark is a cold country. So if we put it in during a summertime, it matures much faster than if we do it wintertime. So summertime, it would need 6 months in a cask. Wintertime would have to get some summer or some autumn or some springtime to get some heat into those casks. So it differs from when we put it into the cask, how long it matures in the maple syrup. So this one, as I remember, it's 6 months.
And how many maple syrup casks do you have going at the moment?
70, I think.
Wow.
Yes, but not all full yet. We did a test. I think maybe 20 or 25 is being filled right now. Some will go into our core rye later on. That is the goal of this experimentation. It's actually to build on our core whiskies in the future. We are a young distillery. Yesterday I had an online tasting where I was matched with Glenfarclas. They had their 185 years anniversary. I'm like, oh my God. That was like, whew. we're not 185 years old, so we have a long way to go to find our core flavor of a Stauning whiskey. That's what we're doing now. We're building on, where do we want to go in the long run.
That's something I like. When I came and visited, we talked about how there's a potential for each batch to be an evolution. So what we tasted 2 or 3 years ago as a club bottle in your core rye isn't going to be what we'd get from a rye now. It's a constant evolution, and it's an evolution. We have the same in Summerton. If I had the same knowledge as I did when I started this 6-7 years ago, we'd still be on Aaron's, and Aaron is lovely, but we'd still have the same bottles, the same brands. We wouldn't have gone too much deeper. But as I've learnt more, I've tried to bring more into the club, and it seems the same of yourselves. This is your evolution that you're sharing with us.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess if we also need to take care that we don't change too much from batch to batch, of course, because we would like to have people stick to Stauning whiskey. So if you were to taste 2 batches, directly after each other, they would taste pretty much alike. But if we were go back 1 year, 1.5 year, you could taste the difference in those 2 batches.
That gradual evolution.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
One thing I was sad about, and the reason that I actually first tasted your whiskey at one of the whiskey shows, you had a skeleton greyhound on the label.
Yes.
And I went straight in because I got greyhounds. I thought it was fantastic liquid. And then you changed the labels.
Well, I think it was the Curious one you had? Yeah. So it's actually not changed. We still have it.
I thought you had. Then I'm happy because when I went back, it was completely different, I thought.
No, it's been discontinued for 6 months, 8 months, something like that, because that was part of our research series, that bottle, and we would like to change things. And then actually we discontinued it, and then people started like, no, you can't do that.
Bring back greyhounds.
So we actually had to bring it back.
Yes.
So we'll do that again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My work here is done. I'm happy now.
Successful evening.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's been really interesting to watch the chat, because this has been a bit of a Marmite bottle, as I thought it might be, because maple syrup is quite a sweet flavour for some. Perfect. Like I remember when you first opened it for me, Alex, I could smell the maple syrup on the nose. I was thinking I was going to be glugging syrup the way it came across. But for others, that's too much, because especially if you want to dry many different flavors, you can. And it's nice to see how the chat's evolved like that as well, seeing how different people are taking it. Some too sweet, which you'd expect, but others loving the sweetness. Some not sweet enough, probably. And I think the ABV being so high does quite a good job of cutting through that sweetness in the flavor.
Yes. And I think that's important that we don't like our liquid at like 40, 41, 42. I think the lowest ABV we have is 45.7 or something like that. And if you ask me, it's probably also a bit too thin. Could probably be a bit stronger. But again, we're different. We're 9 founders. It's not easy being 9 founders and agreeing on an ABV. That's a challenge.
Do you all have to sign off? All 9 of you have to agree to the bottle?
No, not anymore. I'm in charge of our product development, and of course, if I have 8 founders saying, "Alex, you're wrong," I would not go forward with that strength. So of course I listen to them, but basically I have the last word in choosing the ABV or which casks that goes together and stuff like that. So I listen. I have ears.
Yeah, I've got to say I've experienced this now. There's 2 bottles I've experienced your creation on for us, and wow, you have your role. It's amazing what you do. Just those people who are asking about a Tabasco cask, we've got something else coming, and it's got one of the casks in it, and you won't even have heard whiskey being matured in it before. I can't wait. But that's as far as that surprise gets ruined, because you don't get to know any more of that.
There's a cliffhanger.
That's for the future. We'll come back to that. But we're going to go and do what we normally do. And this time we're going to go, Ed, what do you get on the nose apart from maple syrup? Because there's an easy answer there.
So one of the words Alex used, and it kind of used it and then slightly dismissed it, was the word umami. I thought that was a really interesting word to throw out there. So the maple syrup is obviously absolutely there in center stage, but there is this somewhat umami character, like kind of almost stewed mushrooms that have gone slightly sticky in the pan. I really like that character together with the maple syrup sweetness. It almost provides just a little bit of counterbalance, and at least for me and my personal taste, avoids it being too sweet. It balances it back down a little.
Yeah, I agree.
And Fee, what are you getting in the taste, not the nose?
I absolutely love it. There's almost a nutty combination. You've got the maple syrup there, but it works so well, and it's incredibly meaty. There's beef brisket. There are strawberry Pop-Tarts with chantilly cream, creme brulee. Add some water, and then you've got pastrami on pumpernickel bread and dark chocolate truffles. Oh, and pickles, plus those popcorn notes. You need dinner. You need to just ring a takeaway.
I think creme brulee. That's for me spot on.
That's really good.
Actually, I don't know why I hadn't thought about that myself. That's spot on creme brulee on this one.
Do you know those Dutch coffee sweets, hopjes? Apparently, I completely mispronounce it.
No, I don't know.
It's those notes. Then it's not just coffee; it's just this really rich note that's on the finish with the water. And if anyone is Dutch in the chat, please tell me how to pronounce it, because I was told by a Dutch rum person I completely butchered their language. It's hoppers or something. But do try if you get the chance, because they're those wonderful notes. It's beautiful, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I want a bottle now.
And on that, I think we need to move on to the next one. So anyone who likes that, it's available in our club shop. And as Andrew shared, Stauning 25 gets you a discount. That'll be live for a few days, I think 10 days. So if you like this one, it's something unique, and world's best single cask rye whiskey. Well, the sister cask of it. That's there. But we're going on to something which I find is even more interesting, because that last one was just one different cask. Now we've got two, and we've got the first taste anywhere outside the distillery of the evolution of what was a little bit of a crazy experiment. It's now, I will come back to the, sorry, I've just been mentioned, I will come back to the cask suggestions later on, but it's, sorry, we have a separate chat for the people in the background, and I can't do things. But
there's problems.
Let me see if I
exterminate.
It's me.
It's all of us. Matt, is it possible to do your mark again?
See, Dan's had too much to drink now, and he's got too many voices.
Yeah, we've gone all darky again. Yeah, we've got. Just give us 1 minute.
Sounds great.
Right. Are we back?
Tom
Good
Baker
work,
has
Matt.
gone.
Right, so everyone just needs to know there's a guy called Matt in the background that is running our tech, and he's a wizard, apparently. He can get rid of Dalek sounds. But let's go back to this. So there was an experiment to put rye whiskey into mezcal casks and it went phenomenally well. It was called Stauning Bastard, if anyone remembers it. The spicy herbal notes, there we go, that beauty of the rye and the herbal notes of mezcal came together beautifully. Now, I half want Alex to actually explain all this, but just it's gone one step further of adding another layer of flavors, but instead of being in a similar context, it's adding up for me a level of depth. And we are 7 months before it gets released, I believe.
Yes.
We're getting the first taste of something. Alex, please share a little bit more about what this is and how it came about.
So the name of this whiskey is Dirty Bastard. So an evolution of a bastard to a dirty bastard. And everything just screams Dirty Bastard when you nose and taste this one. So it's, so the evolution is that we did the Bastard, which is a rye whiskey, first aged in virgin American white oak, char 4, and then it transferred into a mezcal cask for 6 months. Then it goes into a Mexican hot chocolate milk stout cask. So you've had, it's from Two Beers, a Danish brewery, one of the more crazy and popular breweries in Denmark right now. And they've done this Mexican hot chocolate milk stout, which ages 12 months in a bourbon cask. Then we receive the bourbon cask, and we then give it 6 months, or actually a bit more, in the Bastard in this cask. When you then draw a sample from this cask, it looks really dirty. It's like disgusting, actually, when you look at the sample. So it requires a lot of filtering when you want to actually make a bottle of whiskey. So it completely changes the Bastard to this very unusual type of whiskey. And again, we'd love to do experiments. This will be probably a one-off, I guess, and then we will put it into our core version to some extent, so adding it in and giving some layers and complexity to the core.
Can I just ask, because it's called the hot chocolate, has it got any chocolate in it?
No.
Cool. Sorry, as someone with a caffeine allergy, I had to ask.
But this is, of course, it could do something. I actually don't know. This is the first time we've done a sample and anybody tasting it outside the distillery.
Brilliant.
Yeah, chocolate stout, but not chocolate bar. Yeah, chocolate.
Yeah. Because it's amazing how many chocolate stouts actually have cacao nibs.
Uh-huh.
So I went to Seven Cellars in Brighton and just had to keep rejecting because so many of them had actual chocolate.
Okay.
So upset.
Yeah, so this, I remember tasting it with you, and the different elements. I believe I can get both the mezcal cask and the stout cask coming through in the flavors and how they interact with your flavor as well, starting with your rye. It's a journey, and it's so interesting.
This is, again, for me, a type of whiskey where you would be like, when you first taste it, what is this? I've never tasted anything like this before. You put the glass on the table, and suddenly you will be looking at the glass again and be like, I need to taste that again. And you go back, and you go back, and you go back, because you discover so many new flavors and that complexity of this whiskey. Peppery also. I get a lot of pepper in this.
Chipotle carbonara. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Exactly, chipotle. Yeah.
This would be perfect with a Chinese takeaway.
Yes.
Yeah, that would work well.
You've got those Chinese 5 spice notes. There's duck and plum sauce, hoisin sauce in there.
We have a different version of this one from a brewery called Mikkeller, a Danish brewery.
Yeah.
And it's a pepper stout they've done. But we've done the same. And if you think this is crazy, you should taste that one. That is something like Moses that will divide the waters, like clean cut down through the sea, because it's we had some of the best bartenders come by the distillery, best bartenders in the world come by the distillery, and they absolutely loved it because it was so crazy. Then we had one of our distributors from Germany coming by, and they absolutely hated that whiskey. The best way of describing it is going into the zoo, going into the elephant cage. The kind of what do you call ammoniac? What do you call this intense?
Ammonia,
yeah, intense smell. That's what you get from that. It just completely takes over the whiskey. So pretty weird, but this is more balanced.
I've got to say, I really find this interesting. When I came and visited you, I preferred the maple syrup cask of the two. Today, it's the other way around. It's one of the things I love about whiskey, how your experience of it changes by the day, time of day, what you've eaten, what mood you're in, what you've been drinking before. This is, I've got stout in my mouth right now. Yeah,
imagine some of the next things we are experimenting with right now, as we do everything in-house, is smoke. So, and we're also smoking our rye whiskey, some of our rye whiskeys. At the moment, we're doing an experiment with seaweed. So dried up West Coast seaweed, putting it into the kiln, burning that, and introducing that into the grain. We're also doing Christmas trees. So we've taken a lot of Christmas trees, thrown it into the kiln, and smoked a barley right now to see how that works out. Without, of course, the things on the Christmas tree. There's no what do you call, balls and stuff like that.
2027 Christmas club bottle, by any chance, anyone?
Absolutely.
And when you smell, I went into the kiln. Not the furnace where we kind of burn it, but we have the kiln where we pump in the smoke, and you got sea, so kind of saltiness, sea in the air, standing in that kiln. So
I was
again,
just about to say that's one of the interesting things about using seaweed. Not only are you getting the smoke and the smoke character, you're again bringing that salinity and coastal character into it at the same time. You're getting almost like a double whammy for your efforts.
Yes, yeah. It could be so interesting to affect stuff like this with seaweed, for example, to build an extra layer and salinity, as you say to it.
It works so well with gin as well.
With gin? Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple of gins with seaweed, and they're just stunning.
So they
martinis.
So how do they do that? Put gin on top of the seaweed, or
I think it's the cask.
Oh, so they put gin into the cask and age it into a seaweed cask for a bit.
I think so. I have to admit, I haven't asked, but I've tried, and they're just absolutely beautiful. Perfect for certain cocktails.
This might lead to buying a dog.
One of my tasting notes is actually denim jeans after you've walked the dog.
Yes, we haven't got onto that. Fee, tasting notes.
Yes, sorry.
It's my fault. I haven't brought this up.
It's just so quaffable. You've got lots of things going on. You've got pumpernickel, you've got peppered beef, apricot, sauerkraut, which I didn't expect. And then you've got pink pickled onions in a Mexican dish. Hoisin sauce, definitely got those 5 Chinese spices. You've got Chinese cabbage soup. I'm getting very, very hungry. There's Dunwich, there's petrichor. There's just so much milk chocolate truffle. You've got parsnips, honey roasted parsnips, spiced hot chocolate, and those jeans plus leather, licorice, and Pritt sticks. Oh, and pork chops with sage.
Oh, you need to write our descriptions.
It's definitely one of those drams that you can go back to time and time and time again and discover something a little bit different each time.
Yeah. Absolutely. What I will say also, if anyone's just not quite getting notes today, always sniff your sleeve. So if you see me doing that, I'm not rubbing my nose. I'm just trying to clear my nose. And then you just get more smells going on.
Resetting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if your palate is just a little bit tired, have some water. It just refreshes. Or even you can just sniff over the water. Same thing.
I like that idea.
Great advice.
because I suddenly thought everyone's going to think I'm just rubbing my nose. No, I'm not being dirty. I'm just trying to clear my nose to make sure that I'm getting everything. But it is so quaffable.
Yeah. One thing has come up in the chat about the bottles. It's just something at this. Yes, Stauning have beautiful bottles. Their experimental range has their own unique style. So I say they got this wrong again. Alex is in the room. You also have your core range with your story, and it's beautiful. But obviously, there's a slight issue in the world at the moment that getting bottles is a nightmare. So a lot of people, what you may see is in the shop, we've now listed Stauning's core range and given members a better price as well. So I think that the standard price for non-members is good too. But all of these bottles are part of a fun experiment, a byproduct of the glass issues at the moment, where you get to design your own bottle. Still same shape and the information is on there, but you get to add the stickers and the look and draw on it. And there is actually one that I designed whilst I was out in Stauning that we will be bringing later in the year over as a competition prize. But it's just so you know that that's what we have at the moment, because we have a bulk deal on Stauning where if you buy the free Smoke, Chaos and the maple syrup, you get the rye for free. And those are the bottles you'll be getting. So you'll get to design it yourself, which is actually quite cool. At first I thought, meh, and then I got to do it. Quite simply. So, and the best thing, if you ever go out to Denmark to visit, is in the on the side of the shop in the kind of like the communal area is Alex's and other members of the team's own designs of a bottle. And you get to see what other people thought of doing. And I looked at it and went, that was better. But so yeah,
we've got some crazy designs coming up. In the beginning, people used the stickers on the sticker sheet and the golden pen to design, but now people are starting to do their own designs. So spraying it or dipping it in paint, lipstick, stuff like that. So putting all other kind of stickers, Michelin or Dunlop, stuff like that. All sorts of different stuff is coming up now. That's quite cool, actually.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I do like that. I think we should have. I admit I'm just making it up as I go, and I'm just going to force Alex to maybe do this. See if Ash, who runs Stauning abroad in the UK, will agree to this. But we should have a competition online, on Stauning UK or something, of the best designed bottle, like people done themselves.
I think I can probably. We will send a bottle for free to the girl that does the best design of one of these bottles.
Yeah, let's see. It won't just be. It doesn't need to be just a Summerton thing. I love seeing people's own design. It's one of those things that we've kind of gone away from. Everything's not mass produced, but everything becomes standardized, and it's nice when it all becomes personalized again. Yes, the whiskey's great, and then you have your personal touch on top of it. That is quite a nice way of doing stuff. And as Nick says, maybe we need to be doing this with. I'm taking your idea further, Nick. We need to do this with the Dirty Bastard and just call it Sexy Bastard and let us.
Okay, Sexy Bastard. We'll do that one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do it as a club exclusive or something. We'll find a way.
I love the idea that Dan's just nominated himself as a sexy bastard.
Bottles.
Let us know in the chat.
About me. Bottles, nothing to do with the people in the room.
No, exactly. Very cool. I'm up for it.
Yeah. Sure. Ed, let's go back to the whiskey. Let's do that quickly. Sorry, I digress. This is what happens when you go further down the line in tastings. The conversation goes a little bit further away. So sorry, Alex, but yeah, Matt, can we bring some people's chatting so it's not me? Yeah, I agree. The stuff you're doing is fantastic. Ed, have you ever had a stout cask whiskey before?
I have had a variety of different beer casks, so I think I probably have had one in the past. That said, I think this is particularly distinctive and works particularly well. And as I said earlier, that complexity of flavor and the ability to be able to go back in, sample again, and discover something more, I think is brilliant. I think that's great when you get a whiskey that gives you almost like a new experience each time.
I agree. I'm going to pour
This
some
is actually
more.
my third glass this evening of the same one.
Yeah, I'm going back in again. I'm still saving some for after, but
I'm holding on.
I can't do it to I can't do it with every single bottle the whole way through. Like everyone, I'm going back again. No, this one is the one I'm going back in. Oh, I went back in the maple syrup. I got the wrong one.
And I just saw I can't wait to see the design of the Dirty Bastard. It is ready, the design. We just received it a couple of weeks ago from our designer. The designer is the sister to one of my co-founders. Her name is Tit. She's a tattoo artist. She does all our research series designs. So it is ready now. It looks great. Absolutely great. Incorporates everything that's kind of in the glass on the bottle.
I love one of the things that came across when I visited you is it's a community distillery. It's all about the locals. Like we went into the bottling line, and at first I thought Jonas was joking when he went, "Oh, we just have a couple of the pensioners from the village. We give them free food if they help us bottle." What? Yeah, they just come in to help out, and it's a proper community distillery, and everyone gets their say. Yeah, I've learned that about you now, Jonas. You do not joke. You say some very insightful things.
That's true. Actually, I have a neighbor, a retired neighbor, and I went to his birthday. And I think it's probably a year ago since my neighbor and his friends came to help us at the distillery. And his three friends came and kind of pushed me against the wall and said, "Why the fuck haven't you called us? For a year. We would love to go out there and help you. What's going on? Don't you like us anymore?" So it's really something that people enjoy, to go out there and have whiskey and sing songs, have coffee, good food. We give them a bottle of whiskey and they get a lunch. That's it. They love it.
Smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Oh, I've had one of those as well in the distillery. Awesome. Like the whole experience I had visiting was fantastic, but we're going to have to start to close up. But Andrew has a very good point. Alex, what's your favorite whiskey that's not yours?
That's actually the first rye whiskey I ever tasted. This is back in 2006, as I remember. We started making single malts when we started up back in 2005/6. And somebody told us that why not try to make rye whiskey? So we visited the biggest distributor in Denmark on whiskey and sat together with the founder. And he gave us two whiskeys. And one of them was Thomas H. Handy Sazerac. 125 proof something rye whiskey that will kick your socks off, but the flavors, the complexity, the kind of deepness of that rye whiskey still impresses me every time I taste it. And maybe there's also a small part of history, having this being the first rye whiskey I ever tasted. But sitting there that day together with Lasse, my co-founder, and having that rye whiskey, we were both blown away about that one. And we were like, okay, let's try to do rye whiskey. So that's still one of my absolute favorite whiskeys.
I'm with you. I was lucky enough to have it beginning this year. I don't know if Craig's in the chat. A friend, I went round his. And oh wow, they really do make a very good rye. Yeah. But on that, we probably need to finish. But thank you so much, Alex, Jonas, for giving us your time and dialing in from Europe, sharing creating a whiskey for us. This cask is just ours. It's in the shop if anyone wants it, but also getting us to try something so far before it's released. Anyone who wants to be the first people in the country to get hold of Dirty Bastard, we've got the pre-sale on in our shop at the moment. That is a whiskey I think is worth it. Anyone who likes the maple syrup, that's in there as well. But we've also got the bulk deal, as I said earlier. Get the maple syrup, smoke, and chaos, and you get rye for free. That's automatically applied on the link, whereas the Stauning 25 is what you need to use a discount code on maple syrup. That's the admin part. We'll send it all to you in an email. We will be making a recording of this available afterwards. We just need to set all of that up. So give us a day or two to decamp and send out the details. That will all come. All deals are going to be available for at least a week. I think it's 10 days, give or take. That's the admin. But more importantly, thank you everyone for enjoying it. Thank you for being part of it. Fee, thank you for the most amazing tasting notes ever.
Thank you for the most amazing drams.
Yeah, well, it's not me. I've been lucky. I'm like you. I'm just here as a fan, just enjoying myself. Ed, thank you. You are one of my favourite people to drink whiskey with.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me along.
It's nice to share that with everyone else. As people know, over our events, I try and share people that are important to me, and these two guest hosts are very important to me in my journey in whiskey. So it's nice to share them with you. And Alex, you keep on coming back in my journey, and I love it. Every time it's something new and interesting, and I learn. And yeah, we've got something coming later this year that I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait. Quite simply. I can't say more than that, but thank you, Alex, and thank you, because this is an hour later in Denmark, everyone. So Alex is giving us until 20 past 11 in his own personal time. Just thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And everyone, goodbye, good night, have a lovely evening. I hope you save some drams to go back to. I'd recommend don't finish them all off tonight. You'll regret it tomorrow. More importantly, it's better to come at them with a clear head again, because you'll find different experiences. And yes, we need to find a way to get to Denmark. It might be windy, but it's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, if you saw that video I shared. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.